Chapter 1. The house with too many rooms. Sam Morris preferred to drive when things mattered. He liked the clarity of it, the simple physics of hands on a wheel, foot on a pedal, eyes forward. Driving gave him something to do with excess energy, somewhere to put anticipation. It was why he'd offered without hesitation to take them to Abby's grandparents' place, even after she mentioned it was nearly a 2-hour drive. At the moment, the radio hummed low, something acoustic and unintrusive. The road curved lazily through wooded stretches, the late afternoon light slanting gold through the trees. Abby reclined comfortably in the passenger seat, one sneaker tucked beneath her calf, fingers absently tracing shapes on her thigh. She'd been like this the entire drive, quiet but content, present without needing to fill the space. Sam liked that too. "Still okay?" she asked, turning to him. He nodded, eyes on the road. "Yeah, just mentally ironing my personality." She laughed. "You don't need to do that." "I do. This is the debut. First impressions. Extended family edition. They're not scary," she said easily. "That's usually what the scary families say." Abby reached over, resting her hand on his forearm. "They'll love you. I promise." He believed she believed that, which helped more than the promise itself. They'd been together 9 months, long enough that he could tell when she was being thoughtful on purpose. She was an attentive partner. She remembered things. She noticed when he needed reassurance and gave it without making him feel like he was asking, which was why the size of the driveway made his stomach dip. The road narrowed, then curved, then stretched longer than seemed reasonable. Stone fencing edged the property, immaculate and old enough to have opinions. At the end of the drive, the house rose into view. Sam's foot hovered uncertainly over the brake. "Abby." She turned, grinning. If there were gargoyles," he said carefully, slowing the car, "I would legally be allowed to call this a castle." "There aren't gargoyles. There are turrets." She shrugged. "Decorative." He pulled onto the gravel drive and parked, shutting off the engine. For a moment, neither of them moved. "So," he said, glancing at her, attempting casualness, "before I go in there and accidentally insult someone who owns a vineyard or a small country, what does your family do?" Abby unbuckled her seatbelt and opened the door. "I'll explain later." "When is later?" She was already out of the car, sunlight catching in her hair. "I'm just excited to see everyone." And then she was walking toward the house, leaving the question hanging behind her like an unfinished thought. Sam grabbed the overnight bag from the back and followed. The front door opened almost immediately after Abby knocked. An older woman with sharp eyes and impeccable posture pulled her into a hug without pause. "There you are," the woman said brightly. "We were starting to think you'd forgotten us." Abby laughed, already hugging back. "Never. I swear. Every year you look more like your mother." Sam hovered half a step behind, bag in hand, smiling politely. "This is my Aunt Grace," Abby said, gesturing vaguely in his direction. Sam, "Well, come inside," Grace interrupted, steering Abby forward. "You must see what we did with the East Wing." "The what?" Abby laughed, already being pulled along. "Last year it was a sunroom." "Yes, well, we got ambitious." Sam opened his mouth. "Hi, But the two of them were already walking away, conversation flowing uninterrupted, their energy pulling them deeper into the house. The foyer swallowed him whole. It was massive, high ceilings, polished floors, the faint echo of voices traveling through distant rooms. A grand staircase dominated the space, splitting into 2 elegant curves that met again on an upper landing like they couldn't decide where to go. Sam shut the door behind him quietly. "She'll come back," he told himself. He stepped to the side, out of the main path, setting the bag neatly at his feet. He adjusted his jacket, straightened his posture. He didn't want to look lost when Abby returned. He wanted to look patient. Someone passed nearby, a middle-aged man who nodded politely, smiled, and continued on without stopping. Sam smiled back, reflexively. 10 minutes passed. He checked his phone. No messages. He resisted the urge to pace, instead clasping his hands loosely in front of him, watching strangers cross the foyer and disappear down hallways that led to other hallways. Laughter floated past, indistinct but frequent. 15 minutes. Another woman smiled at him kindly, eyeing him the way people did when they assumed you belonged to someone else. 20 minutes. His confidence thinned, replaced by a low, creeping awareness that he was standing very still in a house that did not know him. Maybe Abby thought he was mingling, he reasoned. That made sense. He could be mingling. He just wasn't sure where to start. 30 minutes. He considered stopping someone. Anyone. "Excuse me, I'm looking for Abby Carter." But the idea lodged somewhere uncomfortable. He didn't want to announce himself into a space where he wasn't sure he'd been noticed enough to be missed. That thought settled heavier than he expected. At 35 minutes, the realization arrived fully formed. "She forgot about me." It wasn't dramatic. There was no spike of anger, no immediate hurt. Just a quiet, unmistakable truth. She had walked into her family's house and let herself be swept along. Understandably, innocently, but completely without turning back. Sam waited another 10 minutes anyway. Pride, maybe. Or the faint hope that she'd suddenly remember and come rushing back, flustered and apologetic. She didn't. 45 minutes, he picked up his bag. No one stopped him. He slipped out as quietly as he'd entered. His departure just another unnoticed movement in a house too large to register him. The drive home felt longer. The forested roads no longer felt peaceful. His thoughts ricocheted uncontrollably, replaying the moment by the door, the unfinished introduction, the ease with which the house had swallowed him. He kept coming back to the same question, over and over, like a stone in his shoe. How do you invite someone into your life, and then forget they're there? Abby noticed Sam wasn't beside her when Aunt Grace pulled her toward the east wing, but the absence barely registered. The house was loud, warm, full of movement. Her family moved quickly, decisively, as though stopping was optional. He's fine, she thought. He's probably talking to someone already. 20 minutes later, the thought returned, quieter, less confident. She scanned the room she was in. No Sam. She checked her phone. Nothing. An hour passed before unease hardened into concern. Hey, she asked her cousin as they passed in the hall. Have you seen Sam? Your co-worker? My boyfriend. Oh, no, I don't think so. Abby frowned. She searched the kitchen, the living room, the dining area buzzing with conversation. She smiled automatically, returned greetings, but her attention fractured. Has anyone seen Sam? She asked again, a thread of confusion tightening. No one knew who she meant. Panic sharpened suddenly when she stepped outside and saw the driveway empty. Her chest hollowed. No, she whispered, already reaching for her phone. Sam? Where are you? Nothing. Did you leave? Why didn't you tell me? Her fingers trembled as the full weight of the truth settled in. She had brought him here, and she had left him standing by the door. Chapter 2. The long way home. The sky had shifted into that uncertain blue-gray that came just before evening fully committed. Sam noticed it without really seeing it. His attention fractured between the road and the reel of moments in his head that refused to stay linear. He drove the speed limit. He always did when he was unsettled, order as a kind of protest. At first, his thoughts were chaotic, overlapping, almost noisy. The look on Abby's face when she told him she'd explain later. The way her aunt's hand had closed possessively around Abby's arm. The echo of his own unfinished introduction lingering uselessly near the front door. Then the noise faded, leaving something quieter and more dangerous. He felt small. Sam tightened his grip on the steering wheel and forced himself to breathe evenly. This wasn't anger yet. It was hurt, clean, sharp, and humiliating in its clarity. He understood distraction. He understood excitement and family dynamics and momentum. What he didn't understand was how long he'd stood there without crossing her mind even once. His phone buzzed in the cup holder. He didn't look at it. He drove another mile before allowing himself to glance down at the red notification bubble. 1 missed call. 3 texts. He turned the radio up instead. Music filled the car, intrusive and wrong, but it helped crowd out the questions spiraling too close to conclusions he wasn't ready to make. He needed time, space. He needed to understand whether this was carelessness or something worse, something structural. By the time he pulled into his apartment complex, the sun was sinking low enough to throw long shadows across the parking lot. He sat in the car for a moment after cutting the engine, the silence loud now that the music was gone. His phone buzzed again. Sam, please call me. He exhaled slowly, picked up his bag, and went inside. Abby sat on the wide stone steps with her phone in her hand, her leg bouncing uncontrollably. Her family continued as if nothing had happened. Laughter floated out through open windows. Someone clinked glassware inside. The normalcy of it all felt absurd, offensive even. She couldn't go back in yet. Not like this. Not with the truth sitting so heavily in her chest it felt like it might tip her forward. How had she not noticed? The question cycled relentlessly. Not why did he leave, that part made sickening sense, but how she had allowed it to happen at all. She replayed the entrance now with painful clarity. Aunt Grace's grip, the sudden flood of voices, the old version of herself resurfacing instinctively, slipping into place as daughter, cousin, niece, moving where pulled. She had let go of Sam's presence the way one let go of a coat once inside. Temporarily, carelessly. Her phone buzzed. Nothing. Just her own message sitting there, unanswered. She stood abruptly and began pacing the length of the steps, hands threading through her hair. She'd assumed he was mingling. Assumed. The shame of it curled hot and tight in her throat. Abby? Her sister called from the doorway. Everything okay? Abby looked up, expression sharp. Have you seen Sam? Her sister hesitated. I thought he was with you. Abby laughed once, breathless and brittle. Yeah, so did I. She stepped down into the gravel, scanning the drive again as if his car might have magically reappeared. It hadn't. I really messed up, she said quietly. Her sister frowned. What happened? I abandoned him, Abby said, the words tasting awful as they came out. I brought him here and I just left him, standing by the door, like an afterthought. Her sister winced. Oh, Abby echoed flatly. Yeah. She pulled her phone out again and typed, fingers trembling now with something close to tears. I didn't realize you were gone until way too late. I'm so sorry. Please call me. Still nothing. Her sister cleared her throat. Do you want me to drive you home? Abby looked at her, surprised. You'd do that? Well, her sister said gently. I don't think this is one you wait out. Abby nodded, throat thick. Okay, thank you. As they walked back into the house to grab her things, conversations paused briefly, glances flicking toward her flushed face, her rigid posture. Abby barely noticed. For the first time in her life, the gravitational pull of her family felt distant, insufficient. All she could think about was the empty space beside her in that foyer. Sam unpacked methodically, shoes by the door, toiletries in the bathroom, the overnight bag folded and slid back into the closet where it belonged. Each action felt deliberate, grounding in its small finality. He checked his phone once, just once, setting it face down on the counter afterward. The apologies kept coming. Each one was sincere. Each one made something twist in his chest. He knew Abby wasn't cruel. That wasn't the question. The question was whether she had room in her life, really, in the chaotic places where her family lived, or whether he would always be something she remembered retrospectively. He leaned back against the counter and closed his eyes. He wanted to talk to her. He just didn't trust himself to do it well yet. The drive home was longer than Abby remembered. Her sister filled the silence with neutral things. Traffic, weather, a neighbor's dog, but Abby couldn't quite engage. She stared out the window, phone heavy in her palm. What are you going to say to him? Her sister asked eventually. Abby swallowed. The truth. And what's that? That I didn't mean to hurt him, Abby said. But I did. And that I understand if that matters more than my intentions. Her sister nodded slowly. That's fair. Abby huffed out a humorless laugh. It's also terrifying. When they pulled into Abby's apartment complex, night had fully settled. She thanked her sister profusely, promised to call later, and climbed the stairs alone. Inside, everything felt too quiet. She kicked off her shoes and stood there, keys still in her hand, the weight of the evening finally crashing down. Her phone rang. She jumped. Sam's name lit up the screen. Abby answered immediately. Sam. There was a brief pause, just enough for nerves to bloom. Then his voice, controlled, familiar, distant in a way she'd never heard before. I got your messages, he said. Relief and dread collided in her chest. Okay, thank you for calling me. Sam, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I know, he said, interrupting gently. But we should talk tomorrow. Tomorrow. The word landed carefully, intentionally. Okay, Abby said, because it was all she was given. Whatever you need. There was another pause. I'm not mad, Sam said. I'm just not ready yet. Abby closed her eyes, the truth of that settling painfully between them. I understand. Good night, Abby. Good night, Sam. The line went dead. Abby sank onto her couch, phone clutched to her chest, and let herself finally cry. Not just from guilt, but from the sudden, terrifying clarity that good intentions were not the same thing as being present. And that love, real love, noticed when someone was missing. Chapter 3 Monday Morning Accounts. By Monday morning, the story had settled into Sam Morris's bones. He woke before his alarm, rolled onto his back, and stared at the ceiling of his apartment, the quiet pressing in from all sides. The embarrassment had dulled into something heavier, less sharp, more persistent. Hurt that no longer asked permission to exist. Getting up felt harder than it should have. Showering helped a little. Coffee helped less. By the time he stepped outside, the city was already in motion, indifferently alive. People hurried past him with expressions that suggested private dramas of their own, and Sam let himself take a small, bitter comfort in that. Whatever he was feeling wasn't unique. It was just his. At work, he lasted exactly 27 minutes before Jenna leaned over from the neighboring cubicle. You look like someone erased you and then forgot to redraw you properly, she said. Sam blinked. Good morning to you too. She handed him a coffee he hadn't ordered. You disappeared Friday afternoon. Then you didn't reply to the group chat all weekend, which means something happened. He hesitated, fingers curling around the warm paper cup. Jenna was a coworker, technically, but also the sort of person who remembered his birthday and once texted him links to apartment chairs after he complained about back pain. She watched him carefully, not prying. Ready. She forgot me, he said finally. Jenna's expression didn't change. Forgot you how? He took a breath. Invited me to a family thing. Grandparents' house. Big deal. Walked in and vanished. Jenna waited. I stood by the door for 45 minutes, Sam continued, the words tumbling out now that they'd started. Like an unattended coat. Then I left. Her mouth opened slightly, closed again. Jesus. I didn't want to wander, he added, unnecessarily. I didn't want to be rude. You weren't rude, Jenna said sharply. You were polite to a fault. That's never stopped people from not noticing, he replied. She leaned back in her chair, studying him. Okay, important question. Does she know she did this? Or is she out there somewhere thinking you bailed for fun? She knows now, Sam said. Eventually. The memory of her messages still sat tight against his chest. He hadn't reread them since last night. He was afraid that doing so would tip him from restraint into something messier. Jenna nodded slowly. How did she react? Panicked, he said. Apologetic. Sincerely. But, he shrugged. But sincerity doesn't rewind 45 minutes. Jenna sat with that, then gestured toward his monitor. You going to be useless all day? Probably. Okay, she said, standing. Then I'm assigning you perspective. We'll talk at lunch. Abby Carter tried to rehearse her apology on the subway. She failed. Every version came out wrong. Too defensive. Too self-flagellating. Too polished. Like she was trying to control his reaction rather than honor his hurt. She had slept maybe 3 hours. The rest of the night had been spent replaying the same moment. Her hand slipping from Sam's awareness. The way her family had filled every available inch of her attention without her asking whether anyone was left behind. She clenched her jaw as the train lurched forward. The worst part wasn't that she'd made a mistake. It was that the mistake wasn't out of character. She had always been like this with family. Subsumed, absorbed, moved along by invisible currents she rarely questioned. Sam had asked about her family. She'd said she'd explain later. Later, she thought grimly, wasn't good enough. At work, her manager asked if she was feeling okay. Abby lied automatically. The lie felt thin even to her own ears. During her lunch break, she finally let herself read Sam's messages again. Carefully, slowly. They weren't angry. That almost made it worse. She typed out a reply, deleted it, typed another. I understand why you need time. I just want you to know I'm here when you're ready. She stared at the screen for a long moment before hitting send. No bubbles appeared in response. Abby leaned back against the cool tile wall of the break room and closed her eyes. At lunch, Jenna dragged Sam to a food truck parked 2 blocks away. Sunlight and grease, she declared. You need both. They sat on a low concrete wall, paper trays balanced precariously on their knees. So, Jenna said, unwrapping her sandwich. Let's say she genuinely forgot. Not maliciously, not carelessly, just situationally. Sam stared at his fries. That's the best case scenario. Is it? He looked up. She continued. Because best case is, I forgot because I assumed you'd be fine. Worst case is, I forgot because I didn't think about you at all. There's a difference. That's not comforting. No, Jenna agreed. It's clarifying. Sam sighed, rubbing his thumb along the edge of the tray. She's attentive. Always has been. That's why this feels so disorienting. Ah, Jenna said. So this isn't about the incident. It's about the contradiction. Yes, he said immediately. Exactly. Jenna took a thoughtful bite. Then the question isn't whether she messed up. The question is whether this is an outlier or a preview. Sam leaned back, eyes closing briefly. I don't want to punish her for being excited. Good, Jenna said. Don't. But I don't want to teach myself it's okay to disappear. She nodded. Also good. They ate in silence for a moment. What do you want from her? Jenna asked eventually. He opened his eyes. Acknowledgement. Not just apologies. I want to know she understands what it took for me to walk out quietly instead of making it awkward for everyone. And if she does, then we figure out what that means. And if she doesn't, his jaw tightened. Then I already know. Abby spent the afternoon on edge. Every email notification made her flinch. Every vibration of her phone sent a spark of hope through her chest that quickly burned out. When she finally left work, dusk was creeping in. The city washed in that indecisive twilight that made everything look slightly unreal. She stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, then turned toward Sam's apartment. Halfway there, she stopped. She couldn't ambush him. Not like this. The thought of him opening the door, unprepared, still guarded, made her stomach twist painfully. He deserved agency, too. She texted instead. I'm heading home. I'll be around tonight if you want to talk. No pressure. She immediately regretted the words no pressure, then forced herself not to correct them. At home, she cleaned like it might fix something. It didn't. Sam got her text at 6:47 p.m. He stared at it while sitting on his couch, jacket still on, the TV muted in front of him. He appreciated the restraint in her words. That mattered more than she probably realized. He typed a reply, deleted it, typed another. Tomorrow after work, 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Yes, anywhere you want. He exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. That night, neither of them slept much. Sam lay in the dark, thinking about the man he wanted to be, the one who believed in patterns, not single points of data, the one who trusted his instincts but didn't let fear steer. Abby lay curled around a pillow, thinking about all the times she'd promised herself she'd do better, and how this time it wasn't abstract. It had a face, a voice, a quiet dignity she had disrespected without meaning to. Somewhere between restlessness and resolve, both of them reached the same conclusion, separately but in parallel. Whatever happened next couldn't be rushed, but it couldn't be avoided either. Chapter 4. The first conversation, they chose a cafe neither of them had been to before. That felt intentional, neutral ground, no emotional residue in the furniture. The place sat on a quiet corner with large windows and an earnest chalkboard sign promising good coffee and no Wi-Fi, which Sam decided was either a blessing or a curse. He arrived early, of course. Sam sat at a small round table near the window, hands wrapped around a mug that had already gone lukewarm. He wasn't nervous in the jittery sense. It was a steadier tension, like a held breath. He wanted to do this right. He wanted to say what mattered without saying anything he couldn't take back. When the door opened and Abby stepped inside, the breath caught anyway. She looked the same, hair loose, jacket half-zipped, familiar in a way that landed somewhere between comfort and ache. She scanned the room, spotted him, and froze for a split second before walking over. "Hi," she said. "Hi," Sam replied. They stood there awkwardly until Abby gestured at the chair across from him. "Can I?" Yeah, of course." She sat. He noticed immediately that she didn't reach for anything on the table. No coffee, no menu. Hands folded in her lap instead, like she was bracing. "I'm really glad you agreed to meet," she said. Sam nodded. "Me too." A silence settled, not hostile, not warm, just open. Abby took a breath. "I want to start by saying I'm not here to explain myself away." He appreciated that. He didn't say so yet. "I messed up," she continued. "I messed up in a way that was careless and hurtful. And I didn't realize how bad it was until you were already gone." Sam watched her closely. Not for rehearsed remorse. She didn't have the polish for that right now, but for understanding. "When you didn't pick up," Abby said quietly, "I panicked. But not because you didn't answer. Because I couldn't picture what it must have felt like for you to walk out of that house alone." Sam exhaled slowly. "Okay. Not forgiveness. But acknowledgement." She swallowed. "I don't want to pretend it was just chaos or excitement. It wasn't. It was a pattern I fall into with family. I get swept up and I assume the people who matter will just orbit, I guess. Which is not fair. And it's not okay." He shifted in his chair, the faint scrape of wood on tile. "Standing there," he said, voice even. "I kept telling myself you'd be back in a minute. That it was just momentum. 10 minutes in, I was still okay. 15, less okay. By 30, it wasn't embarrassment anymore. It was realizing no one even knew I was supposed to be there." Abby closed her eyes briefly, pain crossing her face before she looked back at him. "I'm so sorry. I believe you," Sam said. "But I need you to understand why it landed the way it did." "I do," she said immediately, then stopped herself. "I think I do. But please tell me anyway." He nodded, appreciating that too. "I'm not good at walking into spaces like that," he said. "Big, established groups. I don't take up room easily. So standing off to the side, that was me trying not to impose. Waiting was me assuming you'd remember me soon enough." Abby's hands tightened slightly in her lap. "When it hit me that you hadn't," he continued, "it wasn't about the party. It was about wondering if that happens now, what happens later. When things get complicated. Loud? Competing?" She didn't interrupt. She didn't argue. That mattered. "I left quietly," Sam said, "because making a scene felt like punishing everyone for a thing only one person had done. But leaving also felt like the only way to keep a little dignity." Abby nodded, tears shining but not spilling. "You shouldn't have had to choose between dignity and being welcomed." "No," he agreed. "I shouldn't have." They sat with that for a moment, the weight of shared clarity pressing gently between them. Abby cleared her throat. "Can I tell you what it felt like from my side? Not to excuse it. Just to add context." "Okay," Sam said. She leaned forward slightly now, as if proximity might help. "My family has this gravity. It always has. When I walk into that house, I become the version of myself that knows where the extra chairs are and who's fighting and which story not to bring up. It's not conscious. It's reflex." Sam's expression softened, just a fraction. "When I realized you weren't there," she said, voice shaking, "it felt like the floor dropped out from under me, because you weren't a coat I'd set down. You were someone I'd invited, someone I care about, and I didn't show that." She took a breath. "I don't ever want to do that to you again." Sam studied her face. "Wanting isn't the same as knowing how." "I know," she said quickly. "That's the part I'm working on now." A wry smile tugged briefly at his mouth. "You know, at one point a man in a tweed jacket nodded at me like I belonged there. That carried me for a solid 5 minutes." Abby let out an unexpected laugh, short, startled, and damp around the edges. "Oh my God. It was very validating," he added dryly. She shook her head, half laughing, half mortified. "I truly cannot believe I left you standing there like a Regency extra." He raised an eyebrow. "I did feel like I was waiting for a dance card." The laughter settled something. Not everything, but enough to let the air back into the room. "Sam," Abby said softly, "I love being with you. I love how intentional we've been. I don't want this to be the crack that breaks us apart. But I also understand if it's one you can't step past." He considered her words carefully before answering. "I don't want to end things because of one night," he said. "But I don't want to continue unless we're honest about what the night revealed." She nodded. "Okay. I need to know that if we walk into a room together," he said, You'll notice if I'm not beside you. Her answer came without hesitation. I will. He held her gaze. And not just notice. Act. Yes, she said. I will. Another pause. This one felt different, less brittle, more deliberate. So, Sam said finally, where does that leave us? Abby exhaled, a small, nervous smile appearing. I was hoping you'd tell me. He smiled faintly back. I think it leaves us cautious, but not closed. Her shoulders loosened visibly. I can do cautious. And intentional, he added. She nodded. I'm very good at intentional. He gestured at the empty table between them. Want some coffee? It seems rude not to order anything after taking up a table this long. Abby laughed softly. Yeah, I'd like that. They stood together, the distance between them smaller than before. Not erased, but thoughtfully bridged. And for the first time since the long driveway and the bigger house and the forgotten man by the door, the future no longer felt like a question with no good answers. Chapter 5. Distance with noise. Distance, as it turned out, was not quiet. Sam had imagined it that way, space as a kind of emotional white noise where things could settle. Fewer words, fewer chances to say the wrong thing. Time to regain balance without constantly adjusting to another person's gravity. Instead, distance came with commentary. It came with Jenna stopping by his desk mid-morning and saying, "So have you resolved your romantic disappearance mystery? Or are we still in the fog?" It came with his mother calling on Wednesday night, somehow already aware that he was a little off, despite him having said nothing beyond work's been busy. It came with Abby's absence, not total, just present enough to register. No good morning texts, no links to things he'd like, no playful observations that used to land unannounced in his inbox and brighten entire hours. They had agreed, cautiously, intentionally, to give it a week. Not a break, not a breakup, just room. Sam honored that verbally. Emotionally, he kept tripping over it. He went to the gym more than usual, pushing himself harder than necessary just to have something measurable to be tired from. He watched entire episodes of shows without remembering how they ended. He found himself pausing at crosswalks, half expecting Abby to be beside him, her hand sliding into his automatically. At work on Thursday, Jenna dropped into his chair uninvited. "You're brooding inefficiently," she announced. Sam frowned. "I'm just processing. You reorganized your entire task list 4 times yesterday. That's sorting. That's avoidance." He sighed. "I miss her." Jenna's tone shifted, gentler now. "That was always going to be the cost of space. It shouldn't be this loud," he said. "I thought distance would be calmer." Jenna smiled knowingly. "Distance only works when both people stop echoing. You're still rehearsing." Sam leaned back, rubbing a hand across his face. "She texted yesterday." "Oh, just a check-in. Respectful. Measured. Very Abby trying to be responsible." "And how did that make you feel?" He considered. "Seen. And also, sad." "Progress," Jenna said cheerfully. "Sad people are still engaged." Abby was also discovering that restraint did not mean relief. She was good at self-control. Always had been. But quiet discipline didn't empty her thoughts. It sharpened them. Without Sam's presence, her days felt oddly underdefined, like she'd lost a stabilizing reference point. She refused to stalk his street. She did allow herself to draft texts she never sent. "Saw the dumbest dog on the train today. Thought of you. Delete. I had coffee at that cafe you hate. Delete. This is harder than I thought it would be. Delete." Instead, she poured her energy elsewhere. Therapy appointment moved up. Long conversations with her sister that peeled back comfortingly familiar layers of guilt and obligation. Lists. Always lists. Things I did wrong. Things I can do better. Things I'm afraid he'll never forget. On Thursday evening, she distracted herself by agreeing to cover a friend's shift at a boutique downtown. It was an easy, repetitive job, folding sweaters, greeting strangers, practicing small talk. She'd just finished rearranging a rack when the door chimed. She looked up, and there he was. Sam froze just inside the entrance, mid-step, like he'd walked directly into a thought he wasn't prepared to have. Their eyes met. "Oh," Abby said, eloquent as ever. Sam's mouth opened, closed. "Oh." They stood there like that for a beat, long enough for the moment to swell and then tip into absurdity. "I can leave," Sam said quickly. "No," Abby said at the same time. They stopped, regrouped. Abby backtracked. "You don't have to leave. I just hi." "Hi," Sam said again, sounding slightly less startled this time. He gestured vaguely at the store. "I didn't know you worked here. I don't usually. I'm covering." "Of course you are." There was an awkward pause, specific and familiar. "So," Abby said lightly, "are you shopping?" He glanced at a display of scarves, then back at her. "I was trying to find a birthday gift for my mom." "Ah," Abby said thoughtfully. "Avoid the scarves. She has opinions." Sam laughed before he could stop himself. That broke the tension enough to let him step forward. Just a little. They kept a polite distance between them, a mutual respect for the artificial boundary they'd drawn that now felt embarrassingly visible. "I didn't expect to see you," he said. "Same," Abby admitted, Figures, though. Does it? Well, she shrugged. The city likes irony. They shared a brief smile. It faded gently, not with discomfort but with acknowledgement. I should get back to work, Abby said eventually. Yeah, Sam agreed. I'll find something. He hesitated. You doing okay? She held his gaze. I'm trying to do this part right. He nodded. Me too. They didn't hug. They didn't reach out. But as Sam walked further into the store, he felt something shift. Not resolve. Exactly. But recognition. Distance apparently did not eliminate gravity. Later that night, Abby texted her sister. Ran into Sam. Accidentally. It was, okay? Not easy, but okay. The reply came quickly. That's usually a sign you're both still treating each other like real people. Abby smiled faintly at that. She stared at her phone, then typed a single message she didn't delete. Running into you today reminded me why I'm taking the time to do this carefully. I hope space is doing what you need it to do. She sent it before she could think too hard. Sam read the message on his couch. Legs stretched out, shoes kicked off carelessly by the door. He didn't feel defensive reading it. Or pressured. He felt respected. He stared at the screen, then typed back. It is, even when it's uncomfortable. After a beat, he added, I'm glad we ran into each other. He didn't send a smiley face. He didn't need to. By Sunday, both of them had reached the same unsettling realization. Space only worked if it moved you somewhere. Otherwise, it was just noise with better manners. And neither of them wanted that. Chapter 6, The Second Invitation. Abby rehearsed the question 3 times before asking it out loud. Each version sounded either too tentative or too hopeful, like it assumed an answer she wasn't entitled to yet. She paced her apartment, phone in hand, pausing every few steps to stare at the wall as if it might offer editorial feedback. Finally, she stopped pacing and sat on the edge of her couch. She called him before she could soften it further. Hey, Sam said when he picked up, voice warm but careful. Hey, Abby replied, heart thudding. Is now okay? It is. She took a breath. I want to invite you to dinner. There it was, plain, uncomplicated language. She waited, forcing herself not to rush into qualifiers. Dinner where? Sam asked. My place, she said quickly, then slowed herself. Or not. Somewhere else if you'd rather. This isn't a trap. I'm not springing anything on you. He smiled faintly on the other end of the line. She could hear it. I didn't think you were. She exhaled. It would just be us. And one cousin. Technically. He paused. Technically. My cousin Leo, she said. He lives alone. He cooks too much food. He invited himself. But I can uninvite him if that makes this weird. Sam considered. How many people total? 3, Abby said. No surprise exits. No kidnapped arms. No labyrinthine foyers. That last one feels pointed. It's earned, she said gently. Another pause. Okay, Sam said finally. Dinner sounds okay. Relief washed through her so fast it made her dizzy. Okay. Really? Really, he said. But I want to be clear. Please, she said. I want that. If at any point, Sam said, choosing his words, I feel like I'm being absorbed into a dynamic instead of included in one. I'm going to say so. Out loud. In the moment. Abby nodded even though he couldn't see her. Good. I want you to. And if you notice it happening, he continued, I need to see you notice it. You will, she said without hesitation. Then Saturday's fine. She smiled. A full, unguarded smile this time. Saturday it is. Sam arrived 10 minutes early and immediately stood outside Abby's building, chastising himself for it. Old habits, arriving early was a way of controlling variables. Still, he forced himself not to ring the bell until precisely the agreed-upon time. When Abby opened the door, she looked equal parts relieved and determined. You made it, she said, then winced. That sounded odd. I did, Sam said, smiling slightly. And it did. They laughed, the sound easing something between them. Her apartment smelled like roasted vegetables and garlic, warm and familiar in a way he hadn't realized he missed so keenly. She stepped aside to let him in, deliberately pausing until he crossed the threshold before closing the door behind him. I'm trying something, she said. I noticed, Sam replied. Leo, it turned out, was charming in a way that felt uncalculated, tall, bearded, self-deprecating, and immediately apologetic for his presence. I was told there would be food, Leo said solemnly as they shook hands, and also that I could add protein. You brought steak, Sam observed. I bring steaks to every emotional situation, Leo said gravely. Dinner unfolded without incident. Remarkably so. Conversation moved easily. From work horror stories to terrible restaurant experiences to Leo's ill-fated attempt at pottery. Abby stayed present, not hovering but attentive, checking in with glances that asked still okay? Without words. Halfway through dessert, Leo leaned back and said, All right, I'm going to head out before I become the third wheel in a careful emotional recalibration. Abby blinked. You don't have to. I absolutely do, Leo said. This is when supporting characters exit. Sam laughed. I appreciate your genre awareness. Leo grinned, grabbing his coat. Nice to finally meet you properly. Likewise, Sam said, and meant it. When the door closed behind Leo, the apartment felt quieter, but not empty. Abby slumped slightly against the counter. That went okay? It did, Sam said. Actually, it went really okay. She smiled, then grew serious. How do you feel? He thought about it. Included, he said. Not consumed. Relief flooded her expression. Good. They stood there a moment longer, the night settling around them. Thank you, Sam added, for setting it up this way. Abby nodded. I'm learning how to leave room. He met her gaze. It matters. They didn't rush the rest. They talked. They cleaned up together. When Sam eventually reached for Abby's hand, it felt earned, steady, intentional. This time, when they were in the same room, neither of them wondered where the other had gone. And that felt like a beginning, again smaller, clearer, and far more real. Chapter 7. Choosing each other. Clearly, the problem with progress, Sam discovered, was that it rarely announced itself. There was no moment where something clicked into place with satisfying finality. No clean line where hurt ended and certainty began. Instead, there were smaller moments, almost ordinary ones, that quietly proved things had changed. Like the Thursday night Abby showed up at his apartment with takeout and no expectations. She stood in the hallway holding 2 paper bags and said, I panicked and ordered too much. Sam stepped aside to let her in. This is not a panic scenario. I got 3 appetizers, she said solemnly. One of them is just bread. He smiled despite himself. Come in. They ate on the couch, shoes kicked off, the TV on but mostly ignored. The conversation wandered. Work frustrations. A misdelivered package. A mutual fascination with how aggressively confident pigeons were becoming. Felt easy. And that was what made Sam tense. He noticed it before she did, the familiar slide toward comfort without checking in. The way Abby shifted closer. How her knee brushed his. How his arm settled automatically along the back of the couch. Old muscle memory. He caught himself straightening slightly. Abby noticed immediately. She always did now. You okay? She asked, not defensive, not alarmed. Just present. Sam exhaled. I think I need to say something out loud. She muted the TV without being asked. Okay. He took a moment collecting the shape of the thought. This feels good, he said. And I want to lean into that. But I'm also scared of how easy it is to pretend nothing shifted. Abby nodded slowly. I don't want to pretend that either. If we're going to move forward, Sam continued, I need to know we're not just sliding back into default because it's comfortable. She turned fully toward him now. Then let's not. There was no hesitation in her voice. No bargaining. I don't want default with you, Abby said quietly. I want deliberate, even when it's slower. Something in his chest eased at that. Not because it solved everything, but because it named the path. Okay, he said. Then I need consistency. Not perfection. Just awareness. You have it, she said. And when I lose it, I want you to call it out. He studied her face. You're really okay with that? Yes, she said. Because losing you without realizing it was worse than any discomfort that would come from being corrected. That landed deep. They didn't kiss then. They sat there, shoulders close but not touching. The space between them feeling intentional rather than empty. Later, when Abby left, Sam noticed something else. Something small, but telling. She paused at the door. Can I hug you? She asked. He smiled. Yeah. The hug was brief, warm, clear-edged. When the door closed behind her, Sam felt tired, but grounded. Like he'd set something down rather than picked something up. The shift came into sharper focus 2 weeks later. Abby's sister was in town unexpectedly, and a casual group dinner had ballooned from 4 people into 7. Abby called Sam before he left his apartment. I want to tell you what tonight looks like before you walk into it, she said. He paused mid-shoe. Okay. There's my sister, her boyfriend, 2 friends from college, and maybe my cousin Leo. I didn't plan this, she added quickly. But that's the reality. If that's more than you want tonight, we can reschedule. Sam considered. Not the people, but the invitation. Thank you for telling me first, his instinctive response said. I'm okay with it, he said. I just need you to stay tethered. I will, she said without flinching. If I get swept, I want you to tug. I will, he promised. At the restaurant, Abby kept her word. She introduced him immediately, properly, with context. Not as an accessory, but as someone with weight. This is Sam, she said, one hand resting lightly on his arm. He's the person I always steal fries from. I offer them, Sam corrected. You do not. They laughed. And then they sat. The table was loud. Conversations overlapped. At one point Abby was pulled into a discussion at the far end about a shared childhood memory Sam hadn't been part of. He felt the old instinct rise. Stand back. Let it run its course. But this time, Abby glanced up mid-sentence, caught his eye, and held his gaze for just a second too long to be accidental. You're still here, that look said. And he was. Later, when a lull settled in, Abby turned toward him and asked, Want to tell them about the time you accidentally became the spokesperson for a goat yoga studio? He laughed, startled. That was a misunderstanding. A deeply informative misunderstanding, she said. He told the story. The table listened. The space held. On the walk home, Sam didn't wait for her to bring it up. That mattered, he said. Abby stopped under a street lamp, turning toward him. Good. No, he clarified. Not just good. Reassuring. She tucked her hands into her jacket sleeves. I'm trying not to overcorrect, but I'm also trying not to assume. That balance, Sam said. That's it. That's the thing. She smiled. We're bad at easy things, you know? Yeah, he agreed. But we're pretty good at honest ones. They stood there a moment, city noise flowing around them. Sam, Abby said softly. Are we doing this again? He thought of the foyer, the waiting, the leaving. He thought of the quiet cafe and the careful dinner and the space that had tested rather than erased them. Yes, he said, but differently. Her breath hitched slightly. Good. He reached for her hand. This time, neither of them wondered if the other would let go. Chapter 8. The right kind of future. The thing Sam noticed first was how ordinary things felt again. Not dull, never dull, but gently, comfortably ordinary. Saturday mornings where neither of them rushed to define the day. Grocery trips that involved debates over cereal brands rather than unspoken tension. Nights where they cooked together, bumping hips and arguing over whether garlic could ever be too much. The absence of drama felt earned. It had been 3 months since the house with too many rooms. 3 months since standing by a door unsure if he belonged. Sam didn't think about it every day anymore. But when he did, the memory felt more instructive than painful. A marker, not a wound. They still didn't live together. That was intentional. I like having space, Abby had said one evening as they folded laundry at her place, socks accumulating mysteriously in every corner. Not distance. Just room to choose you each time. Sam liked that phrasing. Choose. She was choosing more consciously now, choosing to notice, to check, to pause before momentum carried her too far. And he was choosing to speak sooner, not letting discomfort calcify into silence. Their rhythm wasn't perfect, but it was honest, which was why, when Abby mentioned her grandparents' annual celebration again, casually, lightly, not as a test, Sam didn't feel his chest tighten. They're doing a smaller thing this year, she said, stirring a pot on the stove. A lunch. No overnight. No extended guest list. Sam considered this, watching steam rise. Are you inviting me? Abby turned to face him fully, spoon stilled. Yes, and I want you to say no if the answer is no. He searched his feelings carefully. Found nerves, yes, but also trust. I want to go, he said. Relief flickered across her face, tempered by restraint. Okay. They planned it together. Down to logistics, timing, where they'd arrive and where they'd leave from. Abby told her family in advance. Sam's coming, she said clearly. He'll be with me. And when they arrived, this time in one car, it was different. Not because the house had changed. It was still too large, still echoing, still full of people with shared histories Sam would never fully inhabit. What changed was the noticing. Abby stayed beside him without clinging. Introductions were deliberate. When conversations pulled her one way, she reached back instinctively, sometimes with a hand, sometimes with a look that asked, "You good?" He was. At one point, Sam excused himself to step outside for air. The day was warm, the kind of warmth that settled rather than pressed. He didn't get far before Abby joined him. Just checking, she said softly. I know, he replied, smiling. It's appreciated. They stood together, not talking, the house behind them full and distant. This feels like repair, Abby said after a moment. Sam nodded. It does. They didn't stay long. They didn't need to. On the drive home, Abby rested her head against the window, exhaustion and relief mingling in her posture. Thank you for trusting me, she said quietly. Sam glanced at her, then back to the road. Thank you for earning it. Later that night, Sam lay awake in his apartment, phone glowing softly in his hand as he scrolled without purpose. He wasn't restless exactly, just thinking. He thought about futures the way he always had, but now they had clearer outlines. Not fantasies, possibilities. Mornings where someone else's presence felt additive, not consuming. Rooms where he didn't disappear unless he chose to step away. His phone buzzed. I left my sweater at your place, Abby texted. He smiled. I noticed, he replied. It's on the chair. 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. Can I come get it tomorrow? Sam set his phone down for a moment, listening to the quiet of his apartment. Not lonely, not empty, just his. Then he picked it up again. Yeah, he typed. Stay for dinner? The reply was immediate. I'd like that. Sam set the phone aside and leaned back, a small, certain smile tugging at his mouth. This was the right kind of future. Not perfect, not dramatic, not guaranteed, but chosen. And this time, no one was standing invisibly by the door.